Such. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, like there's the reason I wear button-up shirts, and it's not just because of my impeccable fashion sense. It's also so I can wear gym clothes underneath this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be wearing them, but I also have this long.
Get ready for the weather. All right.
I'm a eat. I love to eat. I don't get cold.
Yo, I like the heat.
Yeah.
I definitely like heat more than cold, but it is one of those things where it's like, there's some limits there.
It is a little warm, but it's not.
It's absolutely. Let's see here. I want to save this. The Zoom comes up. I've not heard any sound on it. Looks like it's going. I've not heard any sound at all. Okay, that's coming through.
Did you have this set up on Zoom?
I do. I have one student who has had a thing come up and so they might not be able to make it here regularly. So that's one of the things. If you guys have something that comes up like that, whether it's a one-time thing, if you have like more than a day's notice anymore, I can get this set up for you. But if it's gonna be something that's gonna be chronicle or something that's gonna be more than one class period, it's like, this is a really easy way to address that. I still need to go in and take the videos from class and put them into Blackboard, but I'll probably get some time. Hoping a day to do that. I don't know. It's faster if I do it here than at home because connection's so much better. Let's see, we were talking about arrests last time. We already talked about force. Contents of a warrant, we've already really talked about. Time. Felony can be made at any point in time. Possession, expiration of a warrant. When you're talking arrest warrants, sometimes they don't expire. What you can do after an arrest.
This means new so felonious warrants will not expire.
Yes, there you go. So you got the seriousness element. It's like if you're dealing with serious stuff, that's where stuff gets real. Right? Misdemeanors are everything. And what's so funny is people don't realize how low those thresholds are. Let's see the misdemeanors, felony misdemeanors are so much more common because, people mess up a lot, but we purposely try to kind of control that to some degree. There's a lot of stuff that falls into that area. It's a little bit closer. Let's see here. This. Over here. Make sure that is visible to everybody. That's kind of half covered up for you. That's. I think it just makes it worse for everybody else.
Keep it over there.
We'll just use it there. If we need to write stuff down.
Look around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. Yes, the old neck turner. Before we get started, we already kind of did this a little bit. Tell me what's going on in the world.
Well, mostly political stuff.
Yeah, I've not been following it as closely. I know there's been a whole bunch of stuff related to elections and who's on what ballots in what states, and
Well,
that's going to be a legal battle that
they
continues.
kind of threw that all out the window with Trump. They're trying to keep him off all the ballots.
Yeah,
When the Supreme Court comes back 9-0 in your favor.
there you go.
So I would say that's. a
Yeah,
little bit
it's
of
9-0.
9-0.
Yeah.
It's kind of off.
So hopefully that will take care of it, but I don't trust it.
That was against Colorado.
Yeah,
And it made those people look like idiots.
yeah, well, it's one of those things, it's like the thing everybody wants to see is a fair fight. They don't want to see
Yeah.
a fight that's unfair, and they certainly don't want to see someone get crippled before they go into a fight. It's like, that's not cool. It's like, I don't know. That's one of those things that's gonna be interesting times ahead. I'll say that.
It's all up there.
Let's see here. What you cannot do during arrest. All right, so that's, I think, where we left off. We didn't stop with what you can do. We had to hit the things that you can do. So basically what you need to realize is once you have probable cause for an arrest, you have probable cause. Probable cause is probable cause. It extends for all things that probable cause covers. And so you're not justified for the arrest, you're justified for the search. You're now justified to transport the person. All that kind of stuff. You get in some caveats, start talking, start asking questions, but basically, reasonable actions are reasonable. So you're good to go. They start getting out in this section when they start talking about area of immediate control. We talk about that. That's the wingspan. You can search the arrestee. That does include, how do they put it here? Strip search. My favorite way of putting it is the alimentary canal. Means you're getting up close and personal with somebody, right? You have to have justifications to do that beyond just probable cause. You just have your probable cause and get up in there. It's like, make sure you got something else than that. It's like the border is a good example. You're at the border. It is its own justification. You're good to go. It's like you're right over here on Grand Avenue here in Tahlequah, and yeah, no, and don't do that there. That kind of thing. Pretty straightforward. Let's see, DNA samples are pretty straightforward. That's actually one that's put into the booking process for most places anymore that do that. Just go quick cheap swab kind of thing. Here you go. You cannot do. Now this is where you usually get some discussion, and I can talk a little about some stuff. Yeah, there's what's written, and then there's the way things transpire. And sometimes there's some questions. Okay. First, entering third-party residences. Right. Basically, what you start doing there is you're weighing the rights of one person against the crimes of another, and that's not math that we do. A good example of this was, well, you can go back to Matt versus Ohio. You had a lady who they suspected there'd be a criminal housing house. Got nothing to do with her whatsoever. They're just looking for justifications. That's not what you want to do. You don't have a suspect in search with crime. You want crime in search with suspect. You have a crime and a suspect. Usually it's just search, get them, that kind of thing. Let's see here. Third party residences. What else do I need to tell you about that? Immediate appearance, apparent control. I talked about that one probably a few weeks back. Do you guys remember that conversation? If, for example, I call the police and say someone's breaking into my house, they show up at the residence, they see I'm in the house, I open the door and let them in. I've let them into my house. Most people would assume if I'm just a crazy person who has access to that house because no one was there and I'm pretending it's my house, the officer might not know that. They're not going to know the homeowner. They're just going to see, hey, this person appears to be in the house. They have a key, know where everything's at. Why would I question it? It doesn't make any sense. And there's cases like that where it's domestics and stuff like that, where someone had access to something they legally shouldn't, but brought criminal evidence to light for reasons unspecified. That's actually one of the things that a few years back, probably about 3 years back, I want to say maybe 4 now. Was it the FBI? Is one of the 3-letter agencies actually sent out a Facebook notice to people of those dealing with heartbreak. If you're dealing with heartbreak and you know someone who's doing something criminal, it's like, go ahead, let us know. Have a happy Valentine's Day, right? Punish the person you broke up with. It's like, yeah, that's one way to get information, kind of a negative way to go about it. But there you go. Information is information. Whether it's good or bad, we have to figure that out. Let's see. Cannot conduct a warrantless protective sweep unless justified. That's going to have to do with going into businesses and that kind of thing. So hot pursuits, if you're following someone into a business, into something like that, it's like that immediate nature of it usually will do it because you're dealing with the whole justification to track that guy down or that person down was that danger and they want this. And so you can do that to some degree, but there's that reasonableness expectation there as well. That's standard. Typically what you're looking at there is it's just like reasonable suspicion. You need to do just enough to dispel it or confirm it, right? And that's it. So I'm trying to the name of the case I had this phrase, but basically what it is only look for things that are reasonable. Like if you're doing protective sweep, you're not searching because you're not looking for something that's dangerous in that way. You're looking for someone who's got a weapon or someone who presents a danger. You're not going to go looking in this thing to be your suspect. Like you go looking in this thing, you're going and looking in this thing for a different reason for something else.
Let's think about that. Oh,
Yeah. Well, he's like, yeah. The person is he's a primordial dwarf. It's like, yeah, then they might be in there. Otherwise, no. It's the same thing for drugs when you get to searching items later. You get some pretty cool stuff where how probable cause flows. But basically, what's reasonable, right? And if it's not reasonable, why are you getting into it? That kind of thing. Media cannot be invited to a ride-along. See, remember a TV show where we used to do that.
Yeah, but is that specific? Like, let's say, okay, you're going out on a restaurant.
Mhm.
Okay, this is one case. Now, maybe.
No, I think you're probably going the right way.
But it's
You're
like-
playing with image.
Well, it's not a ride along, no, but it's like they tip them off and they're gonna come to somebody's house and they're gonna.
Yes,
And that
that's exactly what I was getting ready to talk about. So it's
Yeah.
like you cannot bring the media with you as you're conducting your business because it is very personal, it is very private, it is very dangerous, it's very sensitive, right? Like we had that whole discussion about body cams, well, I think I just referenced it in here, but body cams was a major debate as to whether or not we should even carry them because of the private nature of it. Now we want to see about bringing the media with us. It's like, okay, where are we at here? And then that whole thing that you just mentioned where, why is it, how is it, particularly when you're dealing with anyone who's of any stature, doesn't matter in what way, if there's gonna be something that happens, these people find out fast and they get there fast. I mean, I told you about how, we had an incident and before the police are on the scene, we have New York media calling. This, I can't remember which one it was, but it was literally national news is calling. Right, so they've heard about it, 6 states away, however many states that is. How is it that they can be arriving and setting up before police go in to arrest somebody for a search or an arrest warrant or something like that? That I don't know. That's one of those things that should be there should be some questions there. Okay. All right, not gonna announce, we already talked about. It is a general rule. To go through that real fast, what I'll say is, in terms of time limits, what a knock is. Did we talk about that already? No. Okay.
Is it a reasonable, it's reasonable?
Yes, it's a reasonableness standard again, right? Okay, if I'm gonna knock on someone's door to say, police, this police, we have a warrant, let me in. Police, that's not gonna announce, right? You're just going right in. The cases that they'll cite in this one, basically, what they'll deal with is the general rule and how long you must wait. Because that's that front end. How long is it to be reasonable? Couple seconds, no, 10, maybe, right? Basically what they started dealing with across the cases was you start dealing with same type of stuff you deal with searches. That time frame is escape and destruction of evidence. Right? You've announced yourself, they'll have an idea of what criminal actions they've taken. If they're a smart person, they'll start destroying the evidence. Right? So you need to get in there pretty quick. So we got to balance that out. The other one's danger. That danger element's the big one. That's one where we have more of a discussion about, is it really better to add in speed and potential violence to someone who's already dangerous to get the reward that you want? That's a hard discussion. As a practice, we do it and it seems to work out most of the time though. I don't know.
But that depends on what you're looking for, too.
Yeah.
If you're drugs, like say, if you're flushing stuff down the toilet.
Yeah, that's
Well,
stuff.
you want to get in there kind of quick.
Or just evidence. It's, I think this is the next chapter, they'll talk about tangible evidence of the people, like physical evidence.
Oh, those are long shorts. Like,
One of them
yeah,
has,
sorry.
yeah.
But, well, I was going to apologize, but whenever. So it's nothing to. I guess I somehow got a job interview before uploading my documentation. I don't know how that
Good.
happened, but I'm not complaining. I.
Cool. Let's focus on
that
this.
side.
Yeah. no,
Yeah,
let's-
sorry, get back to drugs. I'm still writing that
Alright,
high,
so
no pun intended.
we've got the waiting for entering, we've got the, I know what I was gonna say.
Apologies for.
The evidence, physical evidence, some of that stuff is the time of it is important, but the destruction is the other part of it. The ones that we'll deal with in the next chapter, the big one has to do with, it was a domestic murder case. The husband came into the police department and it was actually literally to be questioned about it. When he shows up, as he's talking to a police officer knows it's like he's got this dry brown spot on his thumb. And it's his wife's blood. So it's like, yeah, there you go. When as soon as he notices, the guy starts trying to hide it and destroy it. It's like, yeah, now you got taken down hard. And so it's like the use of force thing. It's also the seizure thing. It's the evidence thing, all those. So that's basically how it works is you're dealing with the destruction of evidence and that danger and those factors involved. How long you need to wait needs to be a reasonable amount of time, weighing all the factors in the situation. And in terms of upper limit, there's no real upper limit, but it's like usually what it is since you don't need to go in, You don't have to force your way in. You're just fine. The processes for getting a no knock warrant is a little bit different. You have to justify that. Every state will do that a little bit differently, but basically what you do is just justify it. You have to establish that there's some reason for that danger or destruction of evidence kind of thing. You have that, there you go, whether it's a nighttime enter or whether it's a no knock enter. You got justification for it, you do it. Let's say you do not have justification for a no knock warrant and you still conduct it like a no knock warrant. Instead, you should have been, please open up. Instead, you decide, you and your friends decide to just bust in the door and roll into place and seize everything, right? Is that a problem?
Yes.
Not technically, no.
You can
Yeah.
get around it. So with knock warrants, if you knock, and what we were trained to do, listen,
Mhm.
you listen at the door, so you're pointing in the stack. He's got his ear to the door.
Yeah,
The guy behind him is the one beating on the
Yeah.
door, saying everything. As soon
Get in there.
as you hear rustling, it can be determined, and it's a jacked up way, but it's protecting evidence.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, murder weapons are kept on a person. Well, you give them that 10, 15 seconds, they just threw it across the room. Well, shit, whose is it? And you find a second set of prints on there. So
yeah,
yes, legally speaking, if you conduct a knock warrant the same way as a no knock warrant, you can have your kit in the ringer.
Mhm.
However, everything that's being covered.
Yeah.
It's for court purposes as somebody.
Nothing changes. There's
effectively-
no change in the process. There's no change in the evidence. The only thing that changed was how you approached, how you got it. It's like all the justifications you had for probable cause.
Go and deal with this.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can step out anytime you need.
I knew it wasn't
Yeah.
that using your phone in the classroom.
No, you're fine. And so, yeah, nothing's actually changed there. The justifications for probable cause still exist. The evidence still might be there. It's the approach and the notice kind of thing. And that's one that's like, yeah, it'd be decent. It'd be nice to have that time, but what are we weighing here? And sometimes it really does matter. On the other side, it does give a lot of leeway there because what ends up happening is, you said, tit in the ringer. I like that phrase. Because on the procedural side, the evidentiary side, there's no harm in it, right? You did it at no knock and it wasn't a no knock, so what? Right, that evidence is still gonna come in, so there's no teeth to it whatsoever. That means that there's been teeth at some point that have been put in at policy level, maybe state level, that kind of thing. And so that's where you get that. And so that's how they control that to some degree. Yeah, cool. Here, I'll tell you a little bit how they try to develop it. It says blanket exceptions. Basically, what they were trying to do is, there's a couple of, usually it's a one-off type thing. You need to establish that you need to be no knock. They're trying to create a blanket exception for, I can't remember if it was violent crimes or it was drug crimes. It was one of the two. And
So
basically,
since during the war on terror,
this has been 19. I want to say it was the 90s. It could have been anywhere in the last 20 to 30 years. So I don't really remember. It's during drug trafficking stuff and that kind of thing. They were trying to figure out blanket exceptions that way they could take care of drug trafficking a whole lot easier. I want to say it was drug trafficking was the case itself. Could have been violent. I don't remember. But yeah, they were trying to get them. Of course, like, no, just saying that that's a felony arrest, I think is what they're trying to do. That is not a blanket exception for the no knock warrant. You know, if you have a felony arrest, you cannot just walk in there and take somebody. You still need to knock. I can't remember the case for that one. It's not cited in here, but maybe it's in the book. If it's not, I can find it for you. Let's see, other arrest issues. Can you detain a suspect while obtaining a warrant? Yes. Can traffic violations or petty offenses? Yes. When we talked about seizures, did I mention the story about the seatbelts?
The broken ones, kids in the back,
Yes.
speeding down the highway.
Yes, she gets arrested.
That was mentioned, but yes.
Okay, no, well, if I did, great. If I didn't, basically what happened was it's a Texas case where ladies pulled over for failure to use seatbelts. Right? Got a couple kids bouncing around the back. What she ends up getting is officer, before he's even talked to the person, has made the decision to arrest this person. Right? Okay, that's a citation. in doing the arrest, you now have to get child welfare services or at least somebody to come take possession of the kids. You have someone to take care of the car and tow it, all the things associated with it. For what? You didn't have a seatbelt on? That seems massively disproportionate.
And I thought she was speeding.
No, this one was,
Okay, yeah, in that case it's different. Like, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, this is a case out of Texas. I don't see it mentioned here. Maybe, I don't see it there either. Basically what happened is officer, she's like riding on the road, kids, not wearing a seatbelt. Right? These are little kids and he's kind of upset about that because, you know, if you have to respond, yeah, exactly. If you respond to the accidents, it's like, yeah, if I can piss you off enough to where you take care of it from here on out, I don't have to see him again on the road. That'd be great. And so maybe that's what his intent was. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just an asshole knew the guy. Doesn't really matter. Lady, it was a lady. As he steps out of the vehicle, it'll say it in the notes, quote is saying, you're going to jail. Because he's irritated. And so he then proceeds to arrest this person for what is a citation.
Traffic accident.
It's not even an accident. It's just
Sorry,
like
not an accident, traffic
yeah,
violation.
click it or ticket.
Yeah, like that, yeah, that'd be like me taking someone to prison
Yeah.
for like. parking.
Yeah, it's like, you don't have that authority. Well, as an officer, he does. Right? And so that's what that case deals with is the justifications there and understanding the nature of law.
What did he actually put on?
I didn't book her on it. It was just processing for the ticket stuff. Right? So you just,
He didn't.
yeah, there's no reason really at all. And so there was this lawsuit.
So
Is that like
I did-
wife or something?
No, it was just, if there's any social issues, it's not outlined in the thing. Basically, what ended up happening is the justification for, it's like, the person's done something criminal, right? As an officer, you can't memorize every law on the book because at any point in time, you've got at least 3 different sets on you and those things read horribly. It's like, they read horribly.
Yeah, not a page.
Yeah. And so for an officer to know not just what a crime is, according to the specific language written across state statutes or whatever, and their associated punishments, which aren't always going to follow exactly what's in there, but they're going to have to look at that in terms of what actually functionally takes place. It's like, yeah, no one's going to have that information. How the hell are you going to keep that up? Right? So I know you've done something criminal. If we can't figure it out right here, I'll take you in as the process. And so that's what they did. In that time, you have all those other issues because there's kids involved in the vehicle.
See, and that's
Yeah.
why I was asking, because
Yeah.
with the kids not being in car seats,
Mhm.
there are states that have made it. illegal
Yeah.
to not have children
Yeah.
in car seats.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's been a
folks on
developing
the
thing.
back seat, right there, you've got reckless endangerment.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, this one, I think was from like the early 90s, I want to say, so it's a little bit before some of that stuff, but yeah, same concept.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's why I was asking.
Yeah, that's the same idea. It's like, I'd really like to not come across, somebody spread across the road. A big red stain. It's like, that's not cool. This is how we're gonna deal with it. This is one of those effects, right? And as a result, we clarified where that line is a little bit. It's like, it's not reasonable to expect an officer to know every single letter of the law. I can identify when something looks suspicious, when it appears criminal. Okay, that seems a lot more reasonable. Let's see, use of force we already covered, and that's that one. Is there anything in here I didn't talk about? Posse comitatus, there you go. That's an old one. You can't. There's a bunch. I'm not as familiar with that. I'm trying to remember the actual stuff on that, because that dates back a couple hundred years. But
Can't use the federal military in policing.
there you go. That's what it was.
Policing action.
Yeah, I was was trying to remember that one, but you have that, and you have the Good Samaritan laws, and then you have here what they start talking about is like assisting, keeping peace, or arresting a felon. Same kind of thing there. Very, very rare though. Punitive force, don't need to talk about that. Sure, talk about that. Use of force continuing, we already talked about. Sweet. All right, chapter 6. Go back, now we're in 7. This should be seizure of things, if I remember correctly. Yes. All right. Holy cow. This is. So here's what I start talking about. Okay, search and seizure as it relates to things. We need to develop legal concept, reasonable expectation of privacy. We've already been talking about that, so it's pretty straightforward. Okay, again, it's going to talk about those 2 types of warrants. So, or not two types of points, two types of, action. Search and seizure again. You're dealing with things. They'll also give you a, give you that. Let me scroll down for a second. And there it is down there. So we'll go a little bit later. Usually I start out with the classifications, but we'll start this way. Okay, right to privacy. Here's where it talks about Griswold and Katz. The right to privacy is something that isn't specifically enumerated in the Constitution. The book will tell you it's the penumbra of the first, third, fourth, seventh, eighth, whatever. They'll throw in a whole litany. Basically, what it is as technology and our integration with each other has changed over the last couple of 100 years, it's changed quite a bit. Here, technology is probably one of the bigger facets of that privacy because of how easy it is for me to invade your privacy. We'll talk about it again a little bit when we start talking about the like written word or spoken word, because that's where technology really takes off. But even here, Katz versus United States, basically what that one was, it's technology. What they were trying to do is identify places that were growing marijuana. This was back when marijuana wasn't quite as legal as it is now.
Was it like meter reading?
Worse than that, meter reading starts to get at it. You know, meter reading's a little bit more direct. They did one that was, let's say a little bit less
I
direct.
remember something about that.
Yeah.
They use a lot of energy when they do like.
That's what, yeah, exactly. So those that are growing, they're gonna feel like rooms like this. Maybe that's what's going on.
That's
Started growing here on campus. New revenue stream. I like it a lot. Yeah, so basically what they do is like you're running, it's gonna be hot as hell. There's gonna be a lot of lights. It's gonna be really humid, really uncomfortable. That's gonna be kind of expensive. You can look at the meter. What they had done in that particular case is they took a infrared thermometer thing, you know, temperature gauge. This house is hotter than the rest. Okay, yeah,
Does that trick also work on brothels?
if they're really good, I guess. I don't know. Oops, bad joke.
I'm sorry,
The many people in there, the temperature will go up. So yeah, that makes sense. No,
I'm sorry, sir. I'm still writing that out. Pun intended.
I like it. I like it. So basically what happened there is, okay, I've not done anything. I'm standing outside. I could be out on the sidewalk with a good one. And just, boop. Yeah, that one's warmer. Okay. Have I violated
Trying to
anything?
kill bed bugs or roaches.
Yeah, well, not even that. It's just mean, well, just taking a gauge, right? I'm just down here doing my thing.
No.
Is that allowed? No, that is a violation of privacy. Why is that? Okay, with that temperature gauge, I'm getting a reading on the outside wall of this house. What you're trying to do has nothing to do with the outside wall of the house itself or the temperature of the house. You're trying to make an inference about what's going on inside of the house and use technology to scan inward. Now, with technology available today, it's like, how far does that stuff go? Well, you know, usually I have a little camera right here. You've heard horror stories where you're getting pictures from your camera and you can't even tell that it's on. It's like, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Tape. I forgot to
Yeah.
replace the tape.
Yeah, that's an important one. Or, you know, the microphone working there could be something like that. Could be I'm standing outside with just a really good. I'm just listening in, or maybe I'm doing something else like the Wi-Fi. A friend telling me a little bit about Wi-Fi technology exists today where I can take the signal intensity, its speed, strength, and use that to map out a room and the entities in it as they're moving around live. So we have sonar using Wi-Fi in every room where Wi-Fi is accessible. Yikes! That's Dark Knight, right?
Is it illegal to do it if you just,
Oh, it's highly illegal.
but if they had a warrant for it, it'd be different. right?
Yes.
Okay.
But you wouldn't really get to that far into where they'd be using the Wi-Fi stuff. They'd be using simpler technology. But that's the extent of how far that goes.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's worse than that. To give you an idea for how much information's out there. One of my favorite stories. Was Elon Musk whenever he took over Twitter. They had problems with leaking. You know how they identified leakers? He sent out a letter that looks something like this, right? Every single person got one, and it was designed to where it looks like every single one of them is the same. What he does, he added in one extra space at a random place and mapped that to each individual person. So each person got a unique one with that one error in a different place. So when it pops up in the media, oh, that's Johnny. All right, we need to go have a talk. People will see that, and go, oh God, that's smart, right? If you're in that area, what you realize with the information and data that they have, especially with metadata, it's like, he literally put what he can do right in front of your face. Now imagine with all the stuff you can't see that he knows because of metadata. It's like, that's the really scary one that most people don't even pick up on because that's how smart he is. It's like, you need to realize that. It's like, that shit's dangerous. But that's information. That's gonna be, whether it's information, whether it's evidence, that kind of stuff. Yes.
This more so reminds me of another thing.
Yeah.
This is a question. It's not a. Okay, well,
Yeah.
so yeah, one time I read about things where a girl was getting groomed on the internet, but she was
Okay.
a minor. That story, but not uncommon. Anyways, what was noteworthy. I mean, ideally, this would be noteworthy in and of itself. But you know what I mean. Anyways, so the police, and after the groomer got caught and whatnot, they came to the house and arrested the girl for.
That's not uncommon. That's one of those things that, okay, so you got a lot of. We'll go into it for a second and we'll get
Like
back
she
into
was
this.
12.
It's actually not uncommon because of the dynamics of the situation. That's one of those ones that's probably better for a juvenile, of course. Basically what ends up happening there is you're dealing with the dynamics of adult and child. And for some reason, people tend to give a lot of weight to the adult. And so,
Yeah, not
yeah.
Yeah,
And
bad
so it's
things
like,
happen.
yes, and so, but we'll save that for discussions on juvenile stuff.
But
Or
yeah,
you're supposed to-
wait, so.
Mhm.
So do you think, so is it like, okay, that kid, it is gonna be able to get off.
It would be more like,
Literal or like a slap on the wrist or a warning or
it would,
something?
it would depend on the nature of it. Usually what it is that, if you have something like that going on, it's technical violations or minor infractions or truancy or some middle, they're just not listening. Take them away for that, because you can do that in the juvenile sphere. And so,
Not listening as into their parents?
yeah, if you're talking about parents, if you're talking about those who are, like in school, that kind of thing, you have defiance, disobedience in the classroom, that kind of stuff. It's like, there's all kinds of venues where you have that power dynamic. So that's, like, that's more of a juvenile question. So,
Okay,
we'll say that
that's
one
my
for
bad. It's just,
yeah,
like,
it's
that
interesting.
seems like insulting. That
Yes,
seems
and
like
that's-
injury.
Well, that's part of why they do that, is to exert power. And that's kind of, there's a whole,
How is that fair?
that's why they do it. It's not, right? And so, but that's a different discussion, focusing on this one. So that right to privacy is there. Your home is the most protected. You can't even make inferences about it if you are going about it in the wrong way. So it's something you need to be very, very careful with. Reasonable expectation of privacy, we've also defined, that's going to be in cats, right? Search defined, you already know that, they'll tell you in the Fourth Amendment. Seizures also there. As a general warrant, here's where it gets good. Let's make that a little bigger. So here are your different classifications, the types of items that are commonly seized. Contraband, fruits of a crime, instruments of a crime, and mere evidence, right? So your contraband, first unique type. Not anything you ever have any possessory interest in. Meaning that because it is contraband, you can't possess it. Meaning, not just if we find it in your possession, we criminalize it. It's like, no, there is no justification for having it. Just having it is justification for us to take action against you.
Like cheap
Drugs.
pizza?
Well, it's like drugs, right? If I have drugs, like, and you take it from me, you're not a police officer. Let's say it's just stolen. I go to report a crime. What happens? Yeah, like that happens. You laugh at, what the hell's wrong with you? You're gonna call me about this? All right, just come in with the cuffs right on you directly, right? So that's one of those things that's gonna come into justifications later, particularly if you start dealing with, we'll put it this way, the whole felonious trees type of thing, right? I'm getting a few different serious indicators that there are drugs in this vehicle, and that's something you have no possession for. So if I've got enough of those, we got to balance the scales between whether we're talking the nature of this interaction with us or that expectation. It's like, you got enough here that's identified. This is something you can't have at all. I gotta take. Right? And so we'll deal with that a little bit more directly when we start dealing with some contraband stuff. Fruits of the crime, it's pretty straightforward. That'd be like, okay, you went and robbed somebody, you got the money, right? Trying to remember the case, gives you both. The one that stands out in my mind has something to do with coins. I don't remember them. Instruments, that's your gun. Right, anything else, could be this thing. Anything like that. Mere evidence is just anything that's going to associate you with that. A good example would be like that spot of blood on someone's finger. That's solid evidence, but it is just evidence. These have a little bit more direct tie to it. This itself is criminal. This is the result of criminal, and this is how you got the crime produced, I guess, how the method you used. There you go. So scope of the search is going to be reasonable based on the object of the search. So depending on what you're searching for, this is the big thing. This is why we have to have a list of the items to be searched for or seized, right? Because we have to determine what's reasonable based on that. If I'm looking for something large, like let's say I'm looking for, I don't know, give me something large that's something you should never have.
A weed farm.
That is something very, very large. Okay, so
Yeah, it's a growing industry.
yeah, so if you're dealing with someone that's an illegal grow, right? So you're in a place where they don't even have any type of legalized stuff. It's like, okay. Then as you're going through that, you're going to be listing off things like, okay, we're looking at plans, we're looking at the tools to take care of it. It's like whatever it is. I was thinking more something like explosives. It's like,
I got dead
you know, it's like how big is the thing we're looking for? If it's an explosive device that can range in size, that kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, you get a lot of differences there. It's just that reasonable standard. Time allowed for the search can't be indefinitely, has to be what's reasonable. And this is where I think the age of the textbook will come in a little bit, because I think this one will say indefinitely, but it won't give you a solid timeline. There's a couple of things where there's been a few cases that have come up since this textbook. One of them stops and searches. The timeframes for such, right? That reasonable time frame. That reasonable applies to time. How long are you holding someone there? Right. And so if I'm going to hold you in a position like I'm going to conduct a police stop, we talked about that in terms of its reasonableness. If I'm going to try to get a canine there to sniff the vehicle, I can't wait 3 hours. If I do that, that's unreasonable. 20 minutes seems reasonable. You can do that. Right? For this, you have that timeline in terms of how long is reasonable. You won't have necessarily a hard stop kind of thing like you will with your knock and announce searches, right? If I'm going in, you have a window before you can start that you might be able to remove depending on the situation. On the other end, there isn't necessarily a hard stop to say this is when this must be over. Except for in this area in the last couple of years, they did have a case where someone did something that was blatantly unreasonable. So it gave kind of a time frame for, I can't remember if it was a dog search or what it was, but it gave a long time frame because it was something very, very minor, and they kept the person there for, I think it was over an hour. And it's very, very minor, and your suspicions here for drugs are very, very low. Yes, that was unreasonable kind of thing. Let's see, procedure after the search. Yeah, give them the list of things seized. Okay, that's going to be its own point of discussion because there has been a lot of errors with that. Right, that's not sort of like accounting. Right, how many times do you make a count of something, and how many times? Let's just ask that question. How many of you guys count something and you have to count something that's more than like 12? Do you count it more than once? You got like I've got $30 in like 5s and 1s. How many times you count that? Once, twice.
Like from counting like money, I separate them into like, okay,
Bills and that kind of thing.
like, yeah, like when I was
Okay, I'm
counting
just
up
asking
to
how many
X,
times overall? Like how many times do you like is it just that one overall time? Or is it 2 or 3?
Well, that's reasonable.
Yeah, right? Yeah, if it's a small amount, just count it once, it's gonna be pretty easy, and you'll keep it straight. You get to where it's big enough, it's like, I'm not gonna need to count that a couple times, and I got no clue. And if I'm over like 10, I'm gonna count it 3 times, and I'll come up with at least 2 different answers, and then I've gotta count it at least one more time, right? Yeah, and so. You're dealing with that, now you're dealing with multiple people, and all the items you're gonna be touching. And now you gotta get a list of that. You gotta have that list for that first warrant you send through. You gotta get that list back with the approved warrant. You gotta have that list that you give to the person, the parties involved in the search. You have any breakdown in that? Guess what? Illegal evidence, potentially, right? This isn't on the list. That means it shouldn't have been seized. It shouldn't have been taken, it shouldn't have touched. That kind of thing. Again, you start getting back to some of those reasonable expectations, reasonableness standards for violations of that, like, where did it come from kind of thing. Trying to remember the list of cases. I'll probably give it a little bit later, but I'll kind of help. Errors that are common. I did not give you a list after I conducted the search. That's a problem. You're gonna be on the law side, right? Basically what you deal with there is who forgot it and why, or what items got left off and how, right? You have those multiple steps. Sometimes items get dropped off, and if they do, if you're the officer who put the warrant through, if you've got your approved warrant and you didn't go back and double check your list, guess who's on the hook whenever you remember? Okay, I'm just going off of memory as I do the search. I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. Hey, this is Z right here, right? I get all the way to court and realize, there was an error on this one document, 16 steps in, where this one thing got left off, and now we got to make a decision as to whether or not it gets in. Like, yeah, that's a technicality. You really don't want to be dealing with that far into it, and that's where it's going to be discovered. So that's how that kind of stuff works. It's difficult. Let's see. So if you want to talk about the whole practice, usually what happens is once you've identified the place to be searched and things to be seized, and it's not people kind of thing. If it's a place that has people in it, you can either wait till there's no one there or go and seize the people, right? As you're doing that, it is reasonable to detain those people for the length of that search. It is also reasonable, I think it says in here about watching them. Is that earlier? I don't remember. But yeah, it's like that's reasonable because they can affect things. Do they have anything on them? Did they pick anything up with them? Are they dropping anything? That kind of stuff. Yeah, then whenever you finish up, you give them a list of things. Usually what you should do is just kind of give them a list of things seized. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll leave the whole warrant. And there's some cases in this chapter where it's like they left the warrant. They had the list of things to be seized, but they forgot to give the list of things seized when they left the place because no one was there. They literally, okay, here's your door. It's been forced open. And here's the list of the documentation for the warrant. And as he's looking through it, there's no list of things seized or searched for. Whoops, right? So
Your outline there says usual practice.
Usual practice, there are differences there. You always want to have the list of things seized. Usually it's at the end kind of thing. Sometimes they'll give it at the beginning. I'm trying to think if there's any real changes in that, because if you don't give them that, then basically you start screwing the whole process. So I'm trying to think if there's any real big changes in that. I can't remember any. I don't know. I'll have to dig in on that one.
Not very involved, but when it's saying usual practice, what that says to me is that there's no case law that says you have to give, we always did, if we were doing a big seizure, you provide with a copy of your full warrant so that they can take it for the lawyer to do what they gotta do.
There's definitely case law on it. So that's where you'll, and I'm surprised they don't have them divided in here because, I can't remember the guy's name. I know it started with an R. But it was a drug thing. And they literally, there's a couple of cases. One of them was related to arrests and people seized while conducting a search, and the other one had to do with the search itself. One of them, what it was literally, they were going into a place to conduct a search. maybe it was an arrest, I can't remember. But they were seizing things in the process. They didn't realize that, it was a knock and announce thing. The person claimed that it wasn't a knock and announce, and so when police came in, they started exchanging fire. And so when they took that guy down, he lived. He was challenging it based on the knock warrant aspect of it, and I think it was the list of items seized was not left.
Okay.
And so that's where you want to start digging, talk about the lists and how those things work. Can't remember it off the top of my head though.
Again, I'm just predicating my question off of,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I take from when I see usual practices, okay, how common are those errors? Right? So if it's not, if it's uncommon to say the practice, if it starts to get more common as an error, usual starts to come up because you start running into errors. Contrast between arrest warrant and search warrant, 5 similarities, 3 differences. I don't care so much about that. Basically, what we start talking about is probable cause, probable cause, probable cause. Do you have a warrant? Yes or no? And make sure your probable cause is substantive. You've got something really to it, I should say, that has substance to it. Okay. Okay, a search warrant is a written order issued by magistrate, peace officer, that kind of stuff. Or property to. This is where they start to identify the role of magistrate, their reduced capacity, not full judge. You can have a full judge, you know, please, the judge do this thing too. They have magistrates, the places where there's more need for these types of things. Okay, elements of a search warrant. Okay, supporting or probable cause, oath or affirmation. Those are going to be the documentation you need. Here, we start talking about supporting oath or affirmation. Your oral statements there. Everything the officer has encountered that they used in their personal map to make that determination for the probable cause there. The description for what's the search, seized. And that's signature. We've already talked about that. Okay. Search and seizure without a warrant. So you have that incident to an arrest. Accident circumstances. Big one we need to talk about is consent. How much should we talk about consent? Did we talk about consent here much?
some,
Yeah. So, okay, the biggest thing with consent is. If you're looking for 2 big factors that can determine whether or not something is consensual, what are they?
voluntary.
Yes, voluntary is a big one. Sometimes you'll see it put this way. Sometimes it's knowing. And sometimes it's willing. But you're really talking the same thing. Voluntary and intelligent, or knowing and willing, right? You know what you're doing and you're willing to anyway, right? Those are the big ones, because we can play with both of those facets pretty easily, right? Do you actually know what we're doing here, right? For searches, this is one of the big reasons why searches do not fall under the same sets of standards as Miranda. They have their own. I do not have to inform you that you have the right to say no. In fact, it's really, really bad if I do. It makes my job more difficult, right? You can start talking about talking. I do have to let you know that. Underlying principle there is there's only so much stuff that I can find, but you can keep talking all day long and hang yourself just as bad as you can, and people do. So that's the big thing. So start with that knowing aspect. It just has to seem reasonable that you understand what's being asked of you, kind of thing. But, ooh, oh, darn, I'm stuck. All right, so what I'll say about the willing part. If you have no choice as to how the initial encounter occurs, can anything thereout be willing? Because you did not start the encounter willingly. Oh, yeah. So we'll pick up there next time. Cool. Excellent. All right. Well, I will see you all next week. And I'll get one. I download that. I can't remember. There we go. Cool. All right. So yeah.